The United States and other G7 countries have warned countries that turn a blind eye to ransomware or allow ransomware groups to operate within their border. Action will be taken when an event happens. Ransomware has been all over the news lately. It really seems to be picking up. I'm Beth Motter here with Danny Palmer. Danny, you've been covering this. Let's talk about that warning that's been sent to other countries who are allowing ransomware groups knowingly within their borders.
Well, that was a notice put out by leaders of the G7 countries after the G7 conference here in the UK. Actually, it happened in Cornwall in England. And it basically said that action will be taken against countries who allow ransomware groups to operate within their borders. I mean, this didn't name any countries in particular, but they're pointing the finger at Russia here. Russia is known by lots of cybersecurity experts as a sort of hub of ransomware activity. Groups like, or ransomware operators like DarkSide, which affected the Colonial Pipeline, like ReEvil, which affected the JBS meat processing plant. They aren't known to operate out of Russia. They do all their work on their forums that they analyze. That's all in Russian, and a lot of these ransomware attacks will not execute themselves or install themselves on computers which are running Russian language systems. So the problem here is that in the eyes of Western countries, they have basically accused the Kremlin of turning a blind eye to this activity, in basically allowing ransomware groups to attack Western targets. Because basically, there's these some sort of agreement that they are free to pursue money however they like, as long as they do not attack Russian citizens or interests. And this also applies to a bunch of former Soviet countries as well, where it's known that there are elements of these ransomware groups operating. So it's ultimately a warning to Russia to try to saying, hey, do something about this, because even if a Western, say the FBI, managed to identify individuals behind a ransomware attack and found that they're working out of Moscow, for example, nothing is going to happen to those individuals because Russia will not extradite them anyway, hasn't it? Even as part of the Russian constitution, which it forbids extradition of Russian citizens. So it's one of those things where it's a warning saying action needs to be taken, but it's unlikely this is really going to have a direct effect. This is despite more after the G7 meeting, Joe Biden and Vladimir Putin having a face-to-face meeting where the subject of cyber attacks was on the menu.
Yeah, Danny, it's been really interesting to watch this unfold. Like, ransomware has been in our face recently in the last few weeks, but it's been an ongoing issue we've been dealing with for a while now. It's concerning to think maybe other countries aren't going to take this as seriously, and what will be those after effects? What's going to happen? It's going to be interesting.
It's an interesting one. One cybersecurity researcher I spoke to recently referred to ransomware as there will be before Colonial Pipeline and after Colonial Pipeline, because it seems this particular event attacking essentially the US gas supply for much of the northeastern United States was the event which seems to have sprung attention from the White House onto this subject. And it's come up in this meeting between Biden and Vladimir Putin, and Biden allegedly told reporters that he looked Vladimir Putin in the eye and said, how would he feel if ransomware infected pipelines across Russia? He's also been there's no specifics given here, but he also told reporters how the US, basically inferring, it said the US has cyber capabilities and will not be afraid to use them if it has to. And he didn't detail what these are in particular, but that's going to be seen as a coded or maybe not so coded argument to Russia, saying that if you allow cyber criminals to continue these attacks, we will take offensive cyber action. And it's a really interesting concept that essentially a government could go after or try to counter ransomware groups are operating in another country. I mean, this isn't going to happen in the in terms of arrests, but sort of takes me, it sort of reminds me of what happened with the Emotet malware earlier this year, where a bunch of governments and cybersecurity companies joined forces to basically take down this malware operation. Emotet actually being one of the key forms of malware that's used to deliver ransomware. Ransomware groups have moved on to other malware to do this now, but it's one of those things. It just seems to be the narrative on this seems to be escalating. I mean, ransomware has been a problem for some time now, but just in the last few weeks, it's on the world stage. It's in the area of international relations, and I'm sure this isn't the last we've heard of discussions in this space.
I'm sure it will not be the last time we hear about ransomware, unfortunately. And like you said, it's really just been in our faces, particularly the last couple of weeks, but this has been a threat that has been ongoing. Danny Palmer, thank you so much for explaining this for us. As always, be sure to stick with ZDNet on all ways to try and protect yourself from ransomware. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to like this video, leave us a comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.